I knew that you were going to hit a home run, that you were going to create something that was really, really special. You had mentioned that there was some science behind some like exercises that you don't recommend. There's things that a lot of people are doing that you think are counterproductive. Can you tell us about those?
Dr. Scherger looked at the whole body, because off your spine, you got lever arms. You start using your arms, that usually goes up and causes neck pain, or legs. If you do things with your legs, your knees, then that's going to go up and make, hip problems. And so there's two exercises that are actually not good for you at all, and they're really common.
Eileen, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me again.
Yes, I love having you on the show. You're such a wealth of information. And today we're going to take kind of a detour from detox, which is what we normally talk about, and talk about back pain. So millions of people, tens of millions of people in the United States alone deal with back pain, chronically or on occasion. So what is the real cause of back and neck pain?
It's the shape of the spine and gravity. So people don't realize that your muscles exert tremendous amount of efforts to hold you up in gravity, which expends energy, which makes us fatigued and everything else. But, think of a baby. When they're born, they're a C shape. They can't crawl, they can't sit up. As they begin to develop, because of gravity, they're no longer suspended in water in the mother's womb, the effect of gravity begins shaping their spine. They get a curvature in their neck and a curvature in their low back. And then they can actually stand up and walk. And it takes actually 18 years to fully develop a functional spine. It's like a crankshaft in a motor. If there's a bent crankshaft, you're going to overheat, you're going to wear down edges, and you're going to seize up the motor. And what we've neglected is to implement training to fully develop those curves. Right now, it's almost by accident that you would get the right shape to where you can spend less energy and move more efficient in gravity.
And so what do tight muscles mean in relationship to your posture? A lot of people have tight muscles today. They're stressed. How's that affecting their posture?
It's the body's mechanism protecting you. The muscles are tightening up saying, wait, you're drifting too far from the ideal shape. So we're going to tighten those muscles so it doesn't get worse. See, the correct posture is an S-shape curve where, the head is in line over the hips instead of like forward head posture from all the computer time and the texting and sitting at your desk, and the low back curvature so that you can stand erect. Like, all the listeners could just stand up right now and pretend or try to stand up straight. Then have someone or reach down and feel your hamstrings. If your hamstrings aren't completely loose, you've got problems with your posture, and your body's spending more energy to hold you erect in gravity.
And so why doesn't using like a posture reminder or a back brace or trying to stand up straight work? Because I know we've all done that where we're worried about our posture and we'll start standing up straight and putting our shoulders back. So why isn't that maybe the answer?
To induce curvature, because most people don't have good curvature. So to induce curvature, it's been scientifically proven by Dr. John S. Scherger that you need a shape underneath your body, kind of like a train has a train track to tell it where to go. So you need a cushion that has a particular shape so that the back of your spine, the spinous, a little pokey bone in the back, can float free. And then the edges, they're called transverse process, can be caught. But it's like arching over that and then putting weight on top of the body. So you have to have something underneath your body and something on top of your body. Then you do specific muscular co-contractions, and that actually induces curvature in the spine. When you do these specific exercises, it will actually adjust your own spine. It will bring it to more into alignment, and it exercises two forgotten muscles. Right now, all the exercises are about body muscle overload. Let's get some biceps. Let's do some leg curls and some leg extensions. Let's, do all these things to make strong muscles, but they don't look at how those lever arms work in relation to the spine when it doesn't have curvature or when it does have curvature. But the two forgotten muscles are the interspinalis and the multifidus muscles. And the thing that people don't realize is that if you have proper curvature in your spine, the back of your vertebrae, there are these bones that interlock. They're facets, one on top of the other. And if you're moving in gravity and you have bone-on-bone contact that's supposed to be bone-on-bone, it's strong. But if you lose the shape, then the force of gravity reverses, and those bones don't catch anymore. And the only thing keeping your vertebrae from going out of alignment or discs from bulging is that multifidus and the interspinalis muscle. And so it's like absolutely critical that we begin reshaping the spine so that when we stand straight up, our hamstrings are completely loose. Mathematically, they calculated, Dr. Sugar, he worked with the US Olympic team and with NFL teams and with Cornell University. They actually calculated for every vertebrae in our spine, inches, is it 2 inches forward? Is it 4 inches forward off of the center? You look at most people walking around, they're 2 to 4 inches off of center of gravity. And so gravity's pushing down on the head, it's pushing down on all these muscles. And there's huge forces. People don't realize. Actually, it was first calculated in 1680 by Borelli. He's known as the father of spinal biomechanics. And they basically took a person and put 120 pounds on their shoulder. And then they calculated the exertion on the muscles and the spine. And if they put 120 pounds on the shoulder and walked, it equaled 25,585 pounds. On the fifth lumbar, a lot of low back injuries are the fifth and sixth lumbar. It was 413 pounds. And the discs, how many people are having worn down discs and, discs that are bulging, was 1,239 pounds. So people have no idea, they have pain, they have tight muscles. They go and they get massages or they have a reminder to straighten that up. But just using other musculature to straighten yourself up doesn't strengthen the multifidus or the interspinalis muscles responsible for inducing proper curvature that then would release the protective mechanism of the body. So all those other muscles will go loose. Now, we have 3 exercises that we teach. And, the first exercise is a neck flexion. And we have a force applicator, we call it. It's a neck shaper where we can put force and resistance to strengthen those 2 muscles. But there's also a proper sit-up. It's almost like if you took a sleeping bag and rolled it up. An exercise ball has the wrong shape. It needs to be more like a sleeping bag. We have a power cushion that we're developing. It's one that actually the NFL teams have. Dr. Sugar passed on. He never manufactured them commercially. Only the New England Patriots, Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, and the Jets have these cushions. And so with it, you can arch over it It's like a super sit-up, where you put force right on top of your chest, because where you're arching over it, it's almost like if you want to move a giant boulder. You see these guys with these big, long, straight bars that they'll put at the bottom, then they'll throw like a block underneath to kind of like crib it and get that leverage, that force on it. Well, you want to do the same thing with your spine. You're going to lay over this fulcrum, and then you're going to put force at a strategic location, on the chest, and then you're going to perform this sit-up, and it's actually going to induce that curvature. And then the pelvic tilt. There's a special concave in the cushion where you put force on there and you do this pelvic tilt. I can take really good athletes and have them stand up and measure and feel their hamstrings. 9 times out of 10, they're tight. I tell them to stand up straight. They're trying to force their shoulders back, kind of like, okay, stand up straight. Let me see you stand up straight. I'll have them raise their arms up. And most of the time they don't go straight up because they have this forward posture. Their hands will go forward instead of at the ears. Very few people have the right spinal shape to have their lever arms work properly. They lose range of motion, everything else. So to make a long story short, I can take these guys, I can have them bend over, measure how far they can reach, measure how high they can jump, measure their hamstrings, check their alignment, head over, hips and shoulders. Do one set of each of these exercises on this equipment, and they're like all of a sudden standing up straight without exerting the muscles. Their hamstrings are loose and they can reach up to 6 inches further in one session. And so it takes, in order to train the spine, Dr. Sugar working with Cornell, and the New England Patriots is where he really focused his efforts with them. And it took 8 weeks of doing these exercises. And it's not very many because you have to start really slow, because a lot of people have flat backs, the forward head posture, and those muscles are weak, that people are not used to using them, or their other musculature is so tight that their range of motion is so restricted. So you start off slow and you work, but after 8 weeks, these people have a new spine. And so this is not being taught. All these other methods of just, stand up straight, put a book on your head. It's just that you're not inducing curvature and strength in the right muscles. And so it's always going to have to be like wear the back brace, always remind, but it's always, if anybody's had back pain, I have lived my whole life with back pain. I was almost a miscarriage. I had to wear special shoes because my hip turned in, my one knee hit the other one. I grew 9 inches in 3 months. I was ran over by a car in a parking lot. Every breath was just like daggers in my chest, and I couldn't raise my arms. And that's when I met Dr. Sugar. And so he rehabilitated me through these exercises. And it's, I can't let it be forgotten, because this is really the answer to back pain. So it's like all the people out there that, it's just like they'll even use CBD or THC, topicals to get rid of the pain. So then they feel like they have more range of motion, but they're wearing off more tips of their bones, their cartilage, their discs, their, fooling their body, and so I want to get to a real solution. Sometimes, you have to do anti-inflammatory things. And, we do want to try to stand up straight, because we do have habits, like when you're, head down, texting on your phone, let's, get in a better position, start changing some habits, because these repetitive motions it's like brushing and flossing your teeth. Dr. Sugar used to say, brush and floss the ones you want to keep. But if you want to attain or keep the right curvature that can give you efficient movement and gravity without pain, so you're not expending as much energy, you got to do your power cushion and your neck shaper and your pelvic tilt. That's what he always used to say, just like a few minutes a day, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have function of your back, you're going to slowly start going downhill. And I was acutely reminded of this after I had my daughter Winter about 10 years ago. And then as soon as, 6 weeks later, started exercising, I was I was bent over. That's all I did. And I pulled my piriformis muscle, and that set me off on this 2-year long journey to rehabilitate my body. That it was the very base of my spine that I pulled my muscle. But then as I got rehabilitated, I felt stronger. Then I went and lifted weights, and the trainer had me do this weird twisting exercise with a weight, and my discs started bulging out. So I just had a lot of weakness there, and a lot of typical exercises, weight training. You think you're being healthy, but you're not kind of focusing on these core or spine or stabilizing muscles that you may be doing Pilates. I do Pilates now because it just feels a lot safer to me, because I had a lot of pain and a lot of loss of time and money. It cost tens of thousands of dollars to rehabilitate my back. I assure you, you do not want to go there. It's better to prevent that. And it's better and we all know we have poor posture, bad chairs. People are like looking over their phone. They're sitting in bed on their computer in a horrible spinal, position. And so I think a lot of people realize, especially if they've had a back injury, they need to be thinking about their spine health. And I love that when you told me you were getting into kind of like gadgets that help rehabilitate the spine, I knew that you were going to hit a home run, that you were going to create something that was really, really special and really, really effective. You had mentioned that there was some science behind some like exercises that you don't recommend. There's things that a lot of people are doing that you think are counterproductive. Can you tell us about those?
Sure. Dr. Scherger looked at the whole body, because off your spine, you got lever arms. You start using your arms, that usually goes up and causes neck pain, or legs. If you do things with your legs, your knees, then that's going to go up and make, hip problems. And so there's 2 exercises that are actually not good for you at all, and they're really common. The leg curl. When you lay down on your stomach and you got weights and you're, pulling back on your leg, on the back, your hamstring area. He actually did some studies. This was all proven at Cornell University. The 3rd lever arm systems are actually written wrong in textbooks. But basically, that's putting more stress on your ligament, the ACL in your knee. And so that is a bad exercise. You should never do a leg curl, and you should never do a leg extension either, because they both...
Done. I will never do those again, I promise. Happy to check those off.
I mean, you can do things like squats where you properly, keep your chest up and you're bending at your hips. You can do a leg press where your back is stabilized, where you can push. You want to do things that stabilize your back, like bent over flies. Bad, because you're exposing that low back curve where, your lats could then pull in, and affect the curvature of the low back. So then, you're susceptible to a lot of injuries there. And there's just, an evaluation that needs to take place with each person, because you really shouldn't do any hamstring work unless the person already can stand up straight and not have tight hamstrings. Yeah, otherwise you're like damaging the body. So, one person's different than the other, but there's these super simple screening techniques, and it all, goes about like, your head posture. You can look at somebody, from the side and see, are they veering forward, or is their chin almost slightly up when they sit up straight? Evaluate, what's a good neck curve, what's a bad neck curve. And then also you can evaluate that by turning your head. When you have them look and rotate, if they've got restrictions, they're going to be shifting their head to the side instead of just being able to turn. They're going to try to, work around it. So if their eyes don't stay level when they're turning their head to the left and the right, you got problems in the neck. People will tell you, low back pain alone in the United States is a $50 billion a year problem. That does not include neck. That does not include the headaches from it or the pain radiating down arms. That's just low back pain.
Yeah, I was in that statistic because I literally spent $20,000 to $30,000 at least. Probably more than that. I did Pilates 3 times a week for a couple of years, privates. I did decompression, chiropractors, massage, pain medication. I was just I did a guided cortisol injection with a spine doctor. I was just doing everything I could. And it was what rehabilitated me was very simple exercises. Like I just did this exercise to I call it back restore. I laid on my stomach and then I put my knees up on kind of like a cushion and then put my kind of heels to my butt and then just laid in that position because it kind of helped to decompress my disc back into spinal alignment. But what your concept, your neck shaper is such a brilliant idea. It's very, very simple. It's very easy to do. Can you demonstrate that again?
Sure.
Yes.
I know that there's listeners that can't see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But imagine like a baseball catcher's face mask with a little bit more room between your nose and the cushions. And then imagine a handlebar on it. Okay, so the proper way to do that is, I'm going to lower my chair here, is tilt your head back and look up at the ceiling. Mm-hmm. That's the starting position. Then you want to put pressure on this. You can do it even without the device and put your fingers on your cheeks. But then you want to think about nodding, just chin down, where you're putting pressure and you just go down to the chin level. Then you let go of the muscles and relax and push it back. And that's basically the neck flexion movement. And if you're standing up and doing this, that's the correct way to do it. I'm sitting down now. You will actually feel the low back curve slightly flex and increase. So doing this neck shaper actually increases low back flexibility. Now, this is just the start, our spinal fitness line of equipment. And this is all based on the theories of Dr. Sugar and what he used with the NFL and the US Olympic team. And there is 43 pieces of equipment that go with this. And I'd love to do a training until we get the equipment to show people how to roll a sleeping bag so they can do the arching over and do the sit up and to do the pelvic tilt. And then there's a back twist exercise where we're making these cushions. Actually, I have a cushion right over there. I don't know if I should go grab it or not, but it has a groove in it. The plexus roll is almost meaningful, but it crunches the spinous. You got to let the spinous float. And then the edges had the transverse process, but then the plexus roll, the shape isn't right. Because what you want to do is you want to do this back twist where you sit on a chair. It's like sitting on your hip bones. So you're sitting up and you put your arms kind of like you're chicken, you're flapping your wings, chicken. And then you lead with the head where you do this twist. And what that twist does is it increases blood flow to the spinal discs, and then it changes the disc from a foam, like a kitchen sponge, to a liquid gel, because we want to make it moldable. So chin up slightly, lead with your eyes, look to the back, and you twist, and you pretend that you've got a rod, going through your head to your pelvis. And you do that like 30 times. And then you lay down over these cushions. We make them in 5 different diameters because if you have really forward head posture, you could have a bigger cushion to support the neck. And then if you have a really flat back, you got to have a little tiny one underneath there. And then as you lay over it, because now gravity is off of the muscles that are tight, your body can begin to relax. You put one under the low back, 1 inch above the hip bone. And then you feel the void in the neck, so your head, comfortably rests on the ground, but it's not propped up too much and not too empty. So that way gravity does its thing. And then 20 minutes later, that disc material that was a gel is now back to the density of a kitchen scrubbing sponge. And when you lay there, it's amazing. You will actually hear vertebrae go into alignment because the tight muscles are no longer resisting and holding the vertebrae. There was a business next door, and the guy's son fell off of a trampoline. He'd been through physical therapy, everything, and the poor kid was having seizures. And he happened to come over, and I had these exercise cushions. Ugly ducklings because we're mixing foam for densities and pouring color and our surfaces aren't right and everything else. And so I fitted him to the cushions, and I didn't even have a low back cushion. I just had the neck cushion, but I just gave him a bigger diameter one for his low back. And his dad came back a week later and said, he hasn't had a seizure. And he takes the cushions everywhere with him. And, and I didn't have the neck shaper at the time. So I just told him, I said, just look up the ceiling, put your fingers on your cheekbones, just head down and relax. So I taught him how to do that. So he would do the back twist, do his neck flexion, and then lay over these cushions. No surgery. The kid stopped having seizures. And he says, I didn't have to tell him. He takes those cushions everywhere with him.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think people think when they have a back injury or even very serious ones that it's this complex thing and they need to have surgery. And of course, they go to the doctor, and the doctors, that's what they do. They do surgery. They're going to tell you to do surgery for the most part. But people go to chiropractors, and the chiropractors don't always have these kinds of tools, or they have their set of tools, which are awesome. But many times, like for me, going to a chiropractor didn't help me. I had an acute injury. I had a bulging disc. They couldn't adjust me. No one would adjust me. They were limited in their capacity to help me. The decompression didn't feel good to me. It didn't help me. It was a more complex thing. It was a spinal alignment issue, and it was my posture, and there was other stuff going on that I've been able to fix and resolve, thanks in part to your advice. But it was just I was able to help myself. It wasn't going outside to a doctor or a chiropractor that finally helped me resolve my back issues.
Right. I go to a chiropractor occasionally. I get K-laser treatments. If I've worked and injured, I do a lot of stuff that probably for my age and for structure I shouldn't be doing, but I work hard. And so, I immediately, when there's something not right, I'm taking care of myself. After my car wreck where I was ran over, for Dr. Sugar, he had me teaching his other patients exercises. So there's other exercises he do. There's like leg drag, there's some other hip rotations, and there's just different things that you need to do. And so if we can look at it like, okay, we got to brush and floss our teeth, let's take like 5 times that long, which isn't that much time, and just do these 3 exercises each day. And we're going to like protect ourselves from injury. And we're going to notice that we have more energy. A lot of people are fatigued. A lot of people that are into natural health are living on caffeine, but look at their posture. It's a tremendous amount of energy. And with detox, it's all about energy. If you don't have the right minerals in the cells, you're not going to produce the energy, your adrenal glands and all that. And that's why I had to get into the structural aspect of this, because this is huge. You can do everything else right and have this wrong and never get really well.
Yeah, I mean, the spine affects so much in your body. There's all your nerves go through your spine, there's so much like energy and chi that also goes through there. And so many people are negatively impacted by having their spine out of alignment. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this conversation that we haven't, brought up yet?
I have a few statistics that I could read that people probably don't realize. I went over that 25,585 pounds. That's huge. We talked about the hamstring, and I wanted to go over the fact that if from your waist to your head, if you're like 4 inches forward instead of having the right shape, over your pelvis, that you're going to have 893 pounds of exertion in your hips. That's huge. I mean, how many hip replacements are we having? How many knee replacements are we having? The hamstring alone, when you're that far forward, is exerting 400 pounds of effort. That's, with proper, now compare that to proper posture. It's only 77 pounds of effort. I mean, it's just huge, so a head with good posture to hold it upright is 32 pounds. Straight posture is 64 pounds, but forward head posture is 117 pounds.
Wow.
And so when you take the joints and the discs, because they mathematically calculated all this out at the university. When you take that into consideration, the discs get 86 pounds. It just like the muscles are constantly tight. And with good posture, you're going to have relaxed muscles. So it's like how many people can sit and feel, are all your neck muscles and going down into your shoulders relaxed? Just start checking yourself. And then, I have the wrong shape. How am I? That's why I call it the neck shaper, because the answer is get the right shape. It's like if somebody was to, balance something perfectly in gravity, like you'll see people even spinning basketballs on one finger. If you're balanced in gravity, it's not going to take much effort. But if it's at like, bent over so many degrees, a good example is to take a broom handle and try to balance a broom handle, but then hold it forward at 60 degrees and your wrist will be so fatigued that it can't hold it up. And that's your body.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have their neck muscles are so tight from trying to get it back into balance. They have migraines, they have headaches, they have, probably their eyesight is affected to a degree. They get like jaw pain and clenching at night, and this having your neck out of alignment and your back causes so many other issues that people aren't really aware of, and then that can lead to other injuries as well. So it just makes sense to prevent all this stuff and work on your spinal alignment. Like I went to the chiropractor once, they did an x-ray on my neck and it was completely straight. There was like no curve in
A
it
military neck.
whatsoever.
Right. But it doesn't take much. Dr. Sugar used to say 6 times a day. Obviously it's better to have the neck shaper, but even with your own hands, doing this properly, doing that, some people could maybe only do it 1 or 2 times without pain in their neck, but that's where you start. And then you spread it out and you do it 6 times a day. You start doing these simple neck flexion exercises 6 times a day. You're going to see dramatic changes in how tight your muscles are. It's going to begin shaping your spine without you actually having to force yourself to sit up straight or to hold your head back. Actually become more natural because we're strengthening those muscles to be able to shift the gravitational force. The gravitational force completely reverses on your body based on the curvature in your spine. And so it's a super simple thing to do. It doesn't take very many minutes. It's not like having to go to the gym and spend a half an hour on a workout. It just takes minutes.
Yeah. And I think so many people are focused on how their physical body looks. And this is something I learned, going through my physical therapy and using a therapeutic Pilates and doing gyrotonics and doing other types of things I was using to rehabilitate myself. I really realized that, all this weightlifting I'd been doing is great. I was in good shape and my body looked amazing, but I was forgetting all those little stability muscles, those unsexy muscles that people just ignore that are so important, especially as we get older, to hold up our posture, to keep our hips in place, and to prevent injury, most importantly. And especially for those of you like myself that have been injured before, this is even paramount importance, because I know if I get out of shape and my core starts to get flabby, or which happened during the pandemic, I kind of use as an excuse not to exercise as much and not go to the gym because we couldn't. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to stay home and eat ice cream. Yay. It just is an excuse. And I injured my back again because I had lost tone and core. And so it's just another reminder that, you need to work on the unsexy muscles to maintain your mobility and your back health.
Yeah, and a lot of those calculations that they did on a spine with proper curvature and strength in the arms and, the ability to run and to jump, it's a 15 times to 1 mechanical advantage for strength, speed, everything else. And so when you don't have good spinal curvature and you start, working out your arms and your legs and your back, you're spending so much more energy than you really would if you had the right curvature. So it's really should be a core exercise. They need to change physical education from kindergarten up to teach these things because, you look at the Olympic athletes and the gymnasts, you look at the big curvature in their low back and how their head's so nice and up, and the skaters, it's just like, wow, what posture. Why do you think they can athletically perform so well? It's because they got the mechanical advantage. They got the shapes. But you know what? We can give every child that. If we begin training at the beginning to shape that spine and then quit doing a regular sit-up, and these crunches, that's destroying the low back curve. With the power cushion and arching over that, I mean, the range of motion is incredible, and you're going to work your abs. And, you could do some knee ups and you can do some other ab exercises, but there's certain ab exercises that destroy that low back curve. It's going to tighten those hamstrings. It's going to reduce flexibility, reduce speed, reduce jump height. I mean, we really have to rethink how we're developing our spine.
Yeah. So everyone, I encourage you to get a neck shaper. I love mine. It's something that I've started incorporating into my morning routine. It's something that I do before I do Pilates. It only takes a few minutes to do, because for me, I want to maintain my mobility, my flexibility. Well, I want to live to 100 and beyond, and I want to feel good and I want to look good doing that. And, you can't ignore your spine health and expect some like miracle to happen with your health and your stability and your flexibility as well. So Eileen, tell us where we can get the neck shaper.
At Creatrix Solutions. And in the search box, you can just type neck and it'll pull up, or you can scroll down. There's a banner with a picture of this. I got to get some more pictures. Nate Diaz is using this, Luke Rockhold. It's just like there's a lot of people in the NFL and the Major League Baseball players. Jet Johnson is using it, and they're finding, huge benefits to using this. And so, get your neck shaper.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So everyone, I highly recommend that. It's just such a simple tool. It just takes a few minutes a day with huge benefits. And Eileen has been on the show many, many times. I encourage you to check out her past shows. We've done one on coffee enemas. We've done one on hydration, proper hydration and mineralization. And there's a couple other ones we've done too. So guys, go check those out. Eileen is a wealth of information. You are a nuclear engineer, and you've taken that engineer's mind and reapplied it to kind of solving a lot of common issues that people have and reinventing the wheel, so to speak, when it comes to detox. I love it. So love picking your brain. So thanks for coming on, Eileen.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just got 3 more patents issued. I have my patent plaques in the back, but I got to add 3 more to it. So that makes 10.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we're going to have more new products.
Fantastic. Yeah. And we're going to have you on for future shows as well. We've got a few more things we want to talk about. So everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to the Myers Detox Podcast. I'm Wendy Myers. You can check out all my work on myersdetox.com. And thanks so much for tuning in every week. It's just really such a gift and a blessing for me every week for you to tune in and listen to, everyone that I'm interviewing and all of the content that I produce. I wake up every day just so happy to be able to do what I do and to help you live a better life and get to the underlying root causes of your health issues. So thanks for tuning in.
The Myers Detox Podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.